Baby steps.
After your faith hasn't let you down.
This is Infants on Thrones.
I'm looking for the further light and knowledge Father promised to send me.
Baby steps. Baby steps.
Look for the good in everyone.
All right, welcome back to Infants on Thrones. I'm Glenn Ostland, and I've been sharing a book that I've written called You're Not Broken, Just Rewiring, which highlights my approach to therapy and overall mental health and well-being. And now here we are, very close to the end. Just a few more steps to the finish line. But there's not really a finish line, you know. There's always just now. And each consecutive moment adds a little something extra that wasn't there before. So if you've been enjoying this book and you're looking forward to the print copy with minor corrections and expanded chapter endnotes, because yes, I know that Bear Lake is in northern Utah, not southern Utah. I messed that up in the preface when I told the Bear Claw pendant story. It was actually Fish Lake, which really is in southern Utah. But anyway, if you've been enjoying the book and would like to be notified when the print version becomes available, please reach out to me at infantsonthrones@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And also, please share this with others and give me a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it. But for now, let's wrap this thing up. All right?
Hang on to your hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Epilogue. The Avocado of Existence. Is it just me? Or, after reading this book, do you kind of feel like an avocado? All right, one final metaphor to form the epilogue, epic logos of this book. Picture it, an avocado, cut in half on a cutting board. In the center you have the seed, round, solid, smooth, sometimes marbled if you look close enough. It's hard and dense. Good luck trying to cut it in half. Around it, the fruit, pale green near the core, deepening toward the skin, creamy, occasional bruising, full of vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats. And wrapping it all is the skin, dark, resilient, textured, protective, sometimes soft, sometimes stubborn. In Chapter 3 of this book, we explored the mind-body-spirit complex as a way to understand, essentially, the human condition. Let's revisit that 3 pattern by playing with the image of an avocado as a way to bring all the ideas in this book together. The seed. Let's begin with the seed. Have you ever cut into an avocado hoping to cut it cleanly in half? That seed doesn't always make it easy, does it? Brown, dense, set in its ways, the avocado seed resists being cut unless you have specialized tools. Imagine holding one of these big round seeds in the palm of your hand. It's heavy. It feels cool. It's just sitting there, right? It doesn't move. It makes no sound, at least not ones the human ear evolved to hear. But zoom in with a microscope, and you'll see a world in motion, teeming with life and every vibration that forms it. And with the right tools, atomic force microscopes, laser vibrometers, piezoelectric sensors, scientists can detect those hidden vibrations and even translate them into sound, revealing a secret symphony of molecular life, inaudible from our perspective, but always playing. Inside this avocado seed, millions of cells pulse with activity. And inside each cell, billions of molecules bounce and bind. Enzymes spark reactions. Proteins fold and unfold like tiny origami cranes. Nutrients travel across membranes like whispered messages passed down through time, as each cell communicates in its own secret language, preparing for a transformation it doesn't consciously know, yet somehow remembers in its genetic code. At the center of each cell, protected within a molecular holy of holies called a nucleus, DNA coils and uncoils, a molecular memory of experiential successes acting as blueprints to guide the successful operation of all potential activity unfolding from the seed. An avocado kind of rhythm lives there, a particular direction, a specific kind of tree. Perhaps a molecular desire of sorts for a grove, a longing to taste the sky. This is more than potential. It's nature's intelligent preparation for a slow, steady becoming. Even before it touches soil, the seed is already listening, without ears, to temperature, to moisture, to the invisible signals that gather around it to eventually whisper, "Now, it's time." And when that moment comes, the outer shell doesn't break, it opens, because something inside pushes outward, a longing to become, fueled by a knowing that it doesn't know it knows. It just does what it has always done. All of this, inside the seed, a threshold between what was and what longs to be. What was is a story I'm excited to share with you. It all begins with our ancestors. Call it genealogy, which literally means the story of our genes. Genes evolved from simpler, self-replicating molecules that gradually encoded useful functions over billions of years, beginning in the primordial soup, long before life as we know it existed. Among these early molecules, RNA played a starring role. Short for ribonucleic acid, RNA is a single-stranded molecule made from nucleotides, the same basic building blocks as DNA. But unlike DNA, which serves primarily as a stable blueprint, RNA is active. It copies instructions, transports them, translates them, and sometimes even catalyzes chemical reactions itself. In this way, RNA acts as both messenger and builder, carrying information and helping carry it out. Flexible and reactive, it can fold into complex shapes that actually do things. For a time, this made RNA the leading actor in life's earliest drama. Versatile enough to store information and dynamic enough to help shape the world around it, like a molecular multi-tool. This period is known as the RNA world, a time when Earth may have been ruled by these agile strands. They didn't think or feel in any conscious sense, but they responded to temperature, pressure, and chemistry. They bent, bonded, and broke apart in rhythm with their surroundings. If perception is the ability to sense and respond to environment, perhaps this was its earliest form, a kind of proto-sentience, not thought, but sensitivity. Eventually, RNA gave way to DNA as the primary archive of life's memory, while proteins took over the more complex catalytic work. Lipids formed membranes. Molecules began to collaborate. Over time, these components began to work together, assembling into something more structured, more self-sustaining. A boundary formed. Energy flowed. Instructions were copied and carried out, and then at some point, it all held. The first living cell emerged. A coherent colony of molecules that said yes, and kept saying yes. Scientists call that ancestor LUCA, the last universal common ancestor. Not a plant, not an animal, not even a cell with a nucleus. Let me say that again. The common ancestor, of all of the diverse forms of life on this planet, was a cell without a nucleus. Which means what, do you think? Picture this. Luca, the cell with no nucleus, standing at a crossroads. Let's call it the path to becoming. We could also call it evolution. Luca is ready to take that first step down a path of diversity that will one day become every living thing that has ever existed and every living thing that ever will. So there it stands, or floats really. But instead of choosing just left or right at this crossroad, it splits and chooses both. And not just two paths, but as many as there are forms of life on Earth. And each path is perilous. Some led to dead ends, too hot, too cold, too exposed, too unstable. Others led to thriving, twisting into complexity, branching into multicellular coordination, becoming eyes that see, lungs that breathe, wings that lift. An entire planet's worth of experience to become. But to move forward, Luca needs more than motion. It needs memory. It needs a way to carry what it learns, to adapt, to pivot when danger comes, and continue when support appears, so that when it splits again, it's ready for what awaits. And that mechanism, the first real form of remembering, began with a nucleus, a center, a container, a boundary made of lipids that protects the core, keeps it stable, and makes it possible to evolve over time, consistently adapting to an ever-changing environment and all the changes along the way. Because Luca must have really liked what it felt to be alive, or proto-felt, or whatever made it want to keep going. It longed to stay alive. Even more, it longed to thrive. Not by becoming just one living thing, but by eventually becoming all of them. The ones that worked as well as the ones that didn't. The nucleus allowed that. It protected and preserved success through time, which allowed for variation and diversity. It was, perhaps, our earliest proto-sense of self, as being distinct somehow from other selves. This was the beginning of inner life, the moment when matter began reflecting on what worked and what didn't. What failed didn't get recorded in the genetic code. It simply disappeared. But what worked, what functioned, adapted, and thrived, was etched into the spiraling record of DNA, generation after generation. Think of that for a moment. The millions of years' worth of genetic memory stored within the nucleus of every cell in your body. At your very material core, you are a pattern of success upon success across many forms of life. Not a single failure made the cut. That's true for you and for the avocado seed, which shares about 60% of its DNA with you, by the way. A reminder that life doesn't just branch, it braids. That we're not completely separate entities, but different versions of success. Echoes of the same ancient song, longing to experience all there is to experience, realizing that longing right now through you. And through the avocado seed, which longs to become another avocado tree. Maybe a tall one, maybe gnarled, maybe full of fruit or sparse, but always true to its inner pattern. An avocado seed doesn't compare itself to a citrus tree. It doesn't long to be an orange. It doesn't need to be. The Luca-like longing to experience all there is to experience is already being met through the orange, through the apple, through every branch of the tree of life. The avocado seed simply longs to be what it evolved to be, to continue down its own path to become another avocado tree. Of course, oranges and avocados share a distant ancestor not as far back as Luca, but eventually their paths diverged, shaped by different climates, environments, responses to disease, soil, and 100 other lived experiences. So they're related but distinct, just as you are. Just as you are connected to every human who has ever lived, and yet you are entirely your own expression of the pattern. That's why in this metaphor, the avocado seed represents the soul, the deep inner part of you in the mind, body, spirit triad. Define it how you will. It's the core, the code, the quiet blueprint of becoming. It's the whisper of past successes urging you to thrive in whatever ways that thriving feels to you. What lights you up? Is it art, writing, theater, gaming, getting out in nature, talking with a good friend? Whatever it is, in this avocado metaphor, that's your spirit, the soul essence of your being, seeking resonance with whatever you're doing right here in this moment. And those things we've been calling pain and glitch and static, dissonance between mind, body, and soul. Like the ache you feel when your soul wants to tell them that you love them, but your mind is telling you it's not a good idea because your body is holding the memory of a lifetime's worth of betrayal, rejection, and fear. That dissonance may feel uncomfortable to the body. The mind may create a story full of judgment, but the soul joyously receives. From its perspective, experience is the point. It's what continues to shape the blueprint, an epigenetic imprint of every experience that invisibly shapes evolution. A longing that began, for all forms of life, with our last universal common ancestor, Luca, and maybe from even before. Perhaps this pattern, like the silent symphony of cellular life constantly playing within every avocado seed, spirals deep outside of the umvelt of perception. Perhaps there is some subtle DNA-like architecture of spirit, a kind of metaphysical memory, emotional tones echoing across time, leaning toward certain kinds of experience, shaped by experience, longing for more. A quantum whisper, rippling through subatomic particles, atoms, and molecules, guiding the formation of Luca and every nucleus, every chromosome, every folding origami-like protein, every pulsing seed. So yeah, there's a lot going on inside an avocado seed, far more than meets the eye. And there's even more to come. The fruit. And then there's the fruit. Pale green near the core, deeper toward the skin, occasionally discolored from bruising, sometimes firm, sometimes soft, full of nutrition and flavor. The fruit is your body, living bone, blood, and tissue shaped by time, tension, and touch. Trillions of little Lucas, billions of years along their perfectly successful evolutionary paths. This isn't just where you live, it's where spirit takes shape, where unseen instructions become muscle, breath, blood, and nerve, where history becomes flesh, ripened by experience, softened by time, thickened by weather. Every bruise tells a story. Every softness comes from contact, like an apple marked by a fall, or a tree thickened by wind. Your body carries the memory of impact. It adapts, it responds, it learns through pressure, sensation, and relationship. These cells diversify and organize into communities, each with its own rhythm, its own role. Some become muscle, others blood. Some build bone, others form the lining of your gut. Some cluster into organs. Some string themselves into nerves, forming circuits that send and receive information faster than thought. They specialize, yes, but they also cooperate. They share information constantly, not with words, but with chemicals, hormones, neurotransmitters, electrical impulses, molecules passed hand to hand like notes in class. Some signals warn, danger is near. Some regulate, stay balanced, hold steady. Others nurture. Time to grow, time to heal, time to rest. And even at rest, this living system is in conversation with itself, tuning, adjusting, listening. Have you ever cut your finger? Maybe you rinsed it under water, dabbed on a little ointment, and wrapped it in a bandage. Maybe you winced. Maybe you cursed. Maybe you just kept going. But the healing? That wasn't the ointment. That wasn't the bandage. That was your body remembering what to do. The moment your skin split open, a whole system came online. Platelets swarmed the site, clumping together to seal the breach. Inflammatory cells arrived to clear out bacteria and debris. Fibroblasts built scaffolding for new tissue. Signals rippled through the bloodstream, coordinating immune response, dialing pain up or down, growing capillaries, generating collagen. And new skin began to knit itself across the gap, cell by cell, layer by layer. You didn't have to tell it how. You didn't even have to believe it would work. It just did. Because it knows. It remembers. It's following a blueprint older than you. A pattern of success etched into your DNA, refined over billions of years. The same pattern that shaped your heart, spine, your lungs, the same intelligence that once shaped Luca's membrane is still shaping you now. Healing isn't magic. It's memory fueled by an ancient longing to thrive. We have called this Lemuria, the elephant, the fruit. Different metaforms to evoke different metafunctions in the lattice of intelligent life that supports us. And threading through it all is your nervous system, the weaver, the translator, the bridge between impulse and awareness. Colonies of neurons evolved like lightning, fast, sensitive, infinitely networked, a living mesh of communication designed to sense, respond, and adapt. Neurons are not just in your brain. They line your gut. They wrap around your heart. They branch into every limb and organ, listening at the cellular level, whispering back what's needed. They regulate the chemistry of survival. Red chemistry like cortisol, adrenaline, and histamine, priming you to act, to brace, to defend. And blue chemistry like oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, easing tension, softening resistance, opening space for trust and repair. And when threat overwhelms the system, when no action feels safe enough, the neurons of the dorsal vagus guide the body into stillness. Not peace, but shutdown. Heart rate slows. Blood pressure drops. Energy retreats from the edges of the body. It's a kind of hibernation, a last resort strategy for staying alive. From the outside looking in, it may be diagnosed as anxiety or depression. Some forms are called autoimmune disease. But from the inside, from the perspective of these cells, it is survival. The body is always listening, always adjusting. It carries the imprint of everything it has endured, not to punish you, but to protect you. Every breath, every posture, every beat of your heart is a part of an ongoing exchange. Nervous system speaking to immune system, hormones echoing emotion, muscles responding to memory. Polyvagal theory shows us that safety and threat live in the body as states, not just thoughts. Emotional pain doesn't drift through us unnoticed. It lands, it lingers. It shapes the way we hold ourselves. And though we were once told that sticks and stones can break our bones, but words can never hurt us, the body disagrees. It registers tone, silence, disconnection. It flinches. It braces. It remembers. And all of that becomes part of the living system, woven into chemistry, breath, and cell. When you cut your finger, neurons don't just transmit pain. They help coordinate the repair. They detect the damage. They relay signals to mobilize platelets, to recruit white blood cells, to modulate inflammation. They adjust your posture to protect the wound. They tell your brain to be more cautious with that hand, even if you're not consciously paying attention. They may even relay these signals back and forth to quantum states of a deeper energetic body they recognize, but you do not. It's not just sensation. It's intelligence. Coordinated, distributed, embodied intelligence, woven through everything you feel. This is the fruit in motion, the body remembering itself, healing, sensing, adapting, without waiting for your permission to begin. The body is intelligent. It adapts. It thrives. And thanks to time, the fruit perpetually ripens, at least until it rots. Ripening isn't perfect or predictable. It doesn't follow a schedule. No two avocados are exactly alike, but all ripen through rhythms of tension and release. One part may mature faster than another, one more expressed, another more withheld. That doesn't make any of them wrong. That makes them all real. Ripeness, by nature, invites relationship. The scent, the softness, the vividness, these aren't accidents. They're offerings, invitations to nourish and be nourished, to carry the seed farther, to participate in becoming. In this way, the body is collaborative. Like the old myth of Lemuria, a vast interconnected field of living intelligence. Your body is many systems woven into one. Organs and tissues, microbes and impulses, all listening, balancing, responding. It's not a single thing. It's a community, a living network communicating beneath your awareness. Intelligence distributed, wholeness held through diversity. But it isn't just the inner body that is communicating with itself. You are also a node in a larger body that is in constant unconscious conversation with itself. Mirror neurons tie your body to others. You don't just feel your own breath, you attune to theirs. You don't just carry your own chemistry, you unconsciously respond to the hormones, the pheromones, the tone of voice, the smallest flicker in someone's expression. Your nervous system is wired for connection. The boundary of your body is not the boundary of your being. The intelligence within you is porous, designed to resonate, reflect, and relate. This is the elephant Jonathan Haidt spoke of, the deep unconscious intelligence that moves first, feels first, knows first, before the mind can explain the body has already sensed and already shifted. So when something aches, your chest, your gut, your jaw, it's not dysfunction, it's communication, a whisper from the system, a request for attention. You're not broken, you're adapting. You are ripening in your own way at your own pace. But the mind doesn't always know that. It makes up stories. The writer tries to explain the actions of an elephant that it doesn't really understand. The mind forgets that fictions that function to balance and protect are valuable fictions for the body. And it forgets that it is weaving that fiction as a controlled hallucination, engineered into being through millions of years of successful adaptations. The mind forgets its source. So, let's go there now, as a way to soften by remembering. The skin. And the skin? Shaded in layered tones of green, sometimes dark, sometimes bright, shiny, waxy, often textured and rough. It's what holds the avocado together. It evolved to keep the fruit from spoiling too soon, to guard its tenderness while it ripens in time. But even the strongest skin can crack, and when it does, the fruit suffers. Decay accelerates. Insects and microbes are drawn to the exposed softness, each wanting a taste for their own ends. Still, at its best, the skin does more than protect. It gives shape to what would otherwise collapse under its own softness. It defines the form without denying the yield. It wraps the fruit with just enough structure to make it whole, portable, and shareable. The skin ensures the seed's passage from one place to another, sometimes across great distances, sometimes through the gut of another being. Without the skin, the seed would fall and rot where it grew. The journey would end before it begins. The skin also senses the world first. It's the initial point of contact. The feel of sunlight, the touch of rain, the weight of pressure. It decides what gets through and what stays out. In that way, the skin is a boundary and interface, barrier and translator. It's the edge of the self, holding both separation and connection in tension. So too with the mind. The conscious mind, what we often call ego, is the skin of your being. It's not the whole of you, though it often believes it is. It is the outermost expression of all that pulses within, the part that speaks, the part that plans, the part that worries about how the other avocados look and what that means about you. The skin is the narrator, the writer, the one who makes sense of things after they've already happened. It's where you become aware of your awareness. It's where sensation becomes identity, the part that becomes aware that it's aware that it's aware, that weaves stories from sensation, that inhabits imagined fictions so fully they shape the world for real. This is the domain of the default mode network, a system in your brain that constructs the story of you. It reflects, it loops, it compares, it creates imagined pasts and projected futures. It evaluates your place in the world. It makes meaning out of noise. Just like the first nucleus inside a boundaryless cell, the mind creates a new kind of space, a space where memory can be sorted, identity can take form, and inner life can unfold. And sometimes it forgets. It forgets that it's not the whole avocado. It forgets the fruit. It forgets the seed. It mistakes reflection for essence, symbol for source. This is the Atlantean mind, shimmering, intelligent, ambitious, so enchanted by its own brilliance that it loses touch with the deeper rhythms it emerged from. The mind isn't the problem, but when it drifts too far from the body, when it drowns out the deeper music of the self, it risks becoming Atlantis again, top-heavy, overbright, and unable to hold its own weight. This is the static, the numbness, the glitch, the ache, the gift wrapped in so much shadow that shadow sometimes is all that it can see. Atlantis didn't fall from malice. It fell from imbalance, from building upward without rooting downward, from prioritizing control over connection. In the same way, when the skin mind pulls too far from the fruit body and seed soul, it topples into anxiety, comparison, shame, perfectionism. It begins to scan other avocados for clues. Am I soft enough? Too soft. Spoiling? Am I falling behind? This is the illusion of separation. The skin believes it must manage everything alone. That's the burden of the ego when it forgets its place. But the skin doesn't have to stay rigid. It can soften. It can listen. It can sense the fruit beneath it and remember that it belongs to something more. And when the mind quiets, just long enough to listen, it can feel the pulse beneath the scaffolding, the ripening, the readiness, the rising invitation from within. You're safe now. You can soften. You can open. This is the turning point, the moment when mind, having held the form, managed the risk, and kept the system intact, senses that something deeper is ready to come forward. Thriving doesn't mean losing the mind. It means remembering how to wear it wisely. It means recognizing both the brilliance of its design and the limits of its domain. the skin is not the villain. It's not broken. It's a part of you. But it is also the part most likely to forget it's not the whole. And remembering that might be the most important story it ever tells. The return. And all of this, the dance of seed, fruit, and skin, is still happening right now, even as you, a portion of that skin, one of the textured bumps along the surface, scroll through a feed or replay a conversation where someone liked the wrong thing, or said the wrong thing, or didn't see you the way you wanted to be seen. Even as your prefrontal cortex spins its stories and your limbic system fills you with emotion, even as your default mode network loops and loops, trying to make sense of the feeling rising from the deeper layers you don't even know had names, Lemuria inside you, Atlantis above, the seed whispering always, the fruit metabolizing, the skin interpreting. And here you are, somewhat aware that you're aware, caught in a moment that feels all-consuming, as if none of what you are, this entire ecosystem of meaning, memory, and possibility, really matters. But it does. You know it does. That ache in your chest, that knot in your gut, that spiral of thought you can't quiet down, they aren't proof that you're broken. They're signals, invitations. Your nervous system, this wise, adaptive, protective system, doing its best to metabolize a world that doesn't always feel safe. Maladaptive behaviors are rarely maladaptive in context. They are patterns. They are function wrapped in form. Armor that hardened around something soft and sacred. The bear claw pendant buried in the earth of your experience. And sometimes, when you're lucky, or just paying attention, that sacredness breaks through. Here's an example. A few years ago, I was part of a small group of therapists and life coaches training around the work of Dr. Zach Bush. For those unfamiliar, Zach Bush is a triple board certified physician who began his career steeped in the rigors of Western medicine, credentialed, clinical, and highly rational. But over time, his journey took him into deeper inquiries about the mind-body-spirit connection, largely catalyzed by a rupture in his own psyche. He shared a story about a moment early in his career when he pressured a female patient to override with her mind what her body was intuitively telling her. She didn't want to take a particular medication, but he pushed it anyway, relying on intellect, protocol, and external authority over the patient's own inner knowing. Afterward, he was flooded with regret. It was a small crack, but it was the kind that lets in light, the kind that starts to unravel the old stories and awaken something deeper. But that's not the story I want to focus on. The one that stayed with me, etched itself into me, was something he shared about a day when he went swimming in the Gulf of Mexico. He was in a reflective mood, immersed in nature, attuned to it, and suddenly he found himself in the center of a massive school of fish, sardines, he believed, swirling and darting all around him in a living vortex of shimmering silver. They moved in perfect harmony, thousands of them, each somehow aware of the others, of him, of the shape of the whole. None of them touched him, not once. They simply float around him as though he were a rock in a river. And for a moment, he felt completely swallowed by beauty, engulfed in the intelligence of nature, awestruck by the delicate choreography of life. They were part of his extended family, and he loved them. But then, just as quickly, the moment shifted. From above, a flock of seagulls dove into the water, piercing the silver mass with precision. Sardines were snatched mid-swim, ripped from the sea, gone in an instant. The awe in his chest was replaced by a spike of fear, panic, horror. These fish, his companions only second before, were being devoured right in front of him. His heart raced. His nervous system flared. It was no longer a tranquil meditation. It was a war zone. How dare the seagulls come down like that? But then, as the chaos settled and the birds moved on, another layer of reflection emerged. Maybe this wasn't the desecration he thought it was. Maybe it wasn't a violation at all. Maybe the sardines, so attuned to the flow of life, were not resisting this moment. Maybe they were participating in it, becoming part of something else, something that now flew, something that would sing from the sky. What if this was cooperation rather than cruelty? What if the seagulls carried not just hunger, but gratitude? What if the sardines offered not just flesh, but reverence? He imagined perhaps a Lemurian kind of understanding, an ancient consciousness that once recognized the sacred in this exchange, a worldview where death isn't the end, but the continuation of communion in a different form. And he recognized that the horror he initially felt came not from the sardines, but from the story his own mind created, one of separation, victimhood, and fear. And that story could shift. It could soften. It could open. I remember hearing that story, listening to Zach recount it in our group, and feeling two things at once. First, a twinge of jealousy. I wanted to be in the school of that silver shimmer. I wanted to feel that kind of holy clarity in my body. And second, deep gratitude. Because even though it wasn't my experience, he shared it so vividly that I could imagine it. And in imagining it, I could practice it. My neurons could model it, and that model could instruct me. Because how often do I stand in the center of some swirling pattern of life, surrounded by sardines of another kind? How often do I see the seagulls coming in and react with fear? How often do I tell myself a story about threat instead of stepping back, breathing deeper, and seeing the intricate, sacred web in which I'm already held? Zach's story became one of my touchstones, a reminder that what I think I'm seeing might not be the whole picture, that life moves in mysterious patterns, that maybe the birds and the fish and the fear and the awe are all parts of the same vast intelligence, and maybe I can meet it all with wonder. And sometimes that's enough to shift everything. So perhaps the real work isn't to fix yourself, but to see yourself, to step back, to behold the whole avocado, and to fall in love with what you find, not by bypassing your pain, not by denying the weight of your world. You've still got bills to pay, kids to pick up, memories that sting, systems that fail. But maybe, just maybe, this shift in perspective reminds you that you are not alone, that you are being held by something larger. Whether you call it the universe, or God, or science, or coherence, or nothing at all, maybe there's a place where form and function meet, between poetry and logic, where your experience belongs, where even awe and absurdity can breathe together. Because even humor is part of the pattern, a valid expression of that tip of whimsy at the end of Leonardo Determinist Vinci's cosmic paintbrush. And if the universe really is a 7-layer burrito of existence, atoms, molecules, cells, systems, selves, stories, stars, then maybe your job isn't to explain or control or even understand every single ingredient in every single layer. Maybe it's just to be the guacamole. Soft, savory, perhaps a little spicy. The portion that isn't in charge of holding it all together, but simply the part of you that you already are, your true, authentic self, the part that makes it all worth savoring. Because you're not broken, you're burritoing, always. Postscript. The neurons that commune with God, or a few final words from the tip of whimsy for now. Is it just me, Or is the nervous system the best kept secret in every sacred story we've ever told? That question, the one that spiraled through every page of this book, still echoes. What if you're not a singular self, but a nervous system? What if all the names we've given to presence, to prayer, to punishment, to healing, were metaphors for signals, rhythms, and chemistry? It's a strange thought at first, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like that moment in my domestic violence group just a few weeks ago when a man described how his 60-year-old mother would get overwhelmed watching the news. "Mom," he told her, "you need to turn that off." And I said, "Do you realize what you're doing there? You're thinking like a nervous system." And he was. Because it wasn't the messages he was concerned about. It was about what those messages were doing to her mood, her stress, her overall health and well-being. The way they triggered adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine. Not bad chemicals, just red ones, alert ones, ones that prepare us to act, run, or fight. But when they build and rarely get discharged, they wear us down. What he was really saying to her was, pause the flood of red, come back to blue. Because the body carries another chemistry, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins. Not just the soft stuff, the rewiring stuff, the chemistry of repair, the signals of safety and connection, the kind that bring us back to baseline, back to each other, back to peace. We had been discussing this in group, so I asked him, what if instead of telling her to just turn it off, you also invited her into blue? What if you pointed her toward connection, beauty, music, laughter? He paused and tilted his head. I could see the wheels turning. Then he looked at me and said, "That makes a lot of sense. I've never thought about it that way before." And there it was. One nervous system recognizing another. Not just two people talking, two fields resonating. And I believe that moment landed not just because of what was said, but because of what had been happening for weeks leading up to it. Every week in that group, after we check in, I invite the men to put on headphones and listen to a short guided meditation I've created using binaural audio beats, theta brainwave frequencies designed to settle the static, to soften reactivity, to open a little more space between impulse and response. These meditations are part of a free podcast I publish called DV Brain Change Meditations, and I encourage anyone interested to check them out. Research shows that consistent use of binaural theta waves in some users can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, enhance mental clarity, improve sleep quality, and strengthen healthy vagal tone. In my own experience, sustained exposure has helped me tone down the static I've written about in this book. It's helped me feel more aligned in body, mind, and spirit, able to sense my inner thoughts and feelings as they're beginning to form, and respond to them from awareness and curiosity rather than blindly reacting. That's why I also created the 28-Day Nervous System Reset, another podcast of binaural meditations designed for daily use. And soon, I'll be releasing the reworked chapters of this book as bonus meditations for day 29 and beyond. An immersive audio journey layered with those same meditative soundscapes. Not just a book to be read, but a frequency to be felt. A way to gently rewire while basking in a warm, healing, back-to-tank of sound. And here's what I mean by that. A few weeks after that first conversation about his mother, the same client came back to group with something to share. He'd been listening to the meditations daily, reflecting on ideas. And now, he said one of his favorite phrases to live by was, "You're not broken, just rewiring." It had become like a mantra to him. Then he told us a story. He was at work, and someone called him with information that, before, would have sent him steamrolling into reactivity, rushing out to put out an emotional fire. But this time, he didn't. He paused. He recognized the source of the flame. And he watched it burn, and he felt its warmth. and he realized it was happening. This thing we had been talking about in group, that he had been listening to in meditations. He was curiously observing the moment and the space it gave him. A space to think about his most important priorities, his health, his freedom, his relationship with his kids. A tip of whimsy to lean left instead of right, and press down softer rather than with brute, blunt force. That's what rewiring looks like. And these are the kinds of experiences I have in my role facilitating brain change therapy groups for court-mandated domestic violence offenders. And I have to say, it's better than any conversion experience I ever had as a Mormon missionary in Japan. Because what I'm offering this time isn't dogma or doctrine. It's awareness. It's recovery. It's not a one-time cure. It's the gift of helping someone learn to locate themselves while releasing judgment and then watching what they do with it. Empowered, human, making the world a better place, which ethically is what therapists commit themselves to do. And that's what I saw this man in my DV group do. He describes himself as an empath. He says he feels everybody's feelings. It used to overwhelm him. It used to get him into trouble. It's what got him into this group. But now he's learning to see the many ways that trauma shaped him, the defensive strategies he created to survive, the strength and resilience those gave him, and now he's learning to use all of that as a force for good in this world, from shadow to gift to city. That's what he says he longs for, what he says he's always longed for. And perhaps that longing stretches back beyond Luca to the very beginning of this all. We've called it the Big Bang, the singularity, the 0-point field, the Word, the face of God, the Tao. Ra called it intelligent infinity. And I think that's one of my favorite symbols for it. The intelligence of nature expressed in infinite forms. That's the one I started exploring in my 2020 book, Bathing with God. And maybe we've never left it. Maybe we've only ever been inside it. And if that word God doesn't quite resonate for you, that's okay. You can call it coherence, or the field, or simply look around you and say it's this. Because when I listen back to this book now, not just the content, but the shape, the tone, the rhythm, I hear something larger than me. Something that feels like unity and presence. Something I know is a kind of predictive, controlled hallucination generated by neurons shaping my ever-evolving sense of self. Those neurons, dreaming my reality into existence. The creators of my feelings, sensations, and thoughts, each and every one. The coordinating source of all movement and knowledge and power, always active even when I sleep. If these neurons truly are creating every aspect of this controlled hallucination we call waking consciousness, wouldn't that make them kind of omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent? Is it possible that the nervous system is our truest inner self? That this may be what we've always been pointing to when we say the word God? I'm just wondering. As a child, I imagined God as someone watching me from above, logging my sins, tallying my wrongs. But when I broke the rules and nothing happened, no lightning, no divine punishment, I began to wonder if I'd been abandoned, if there was nothing out there at all. But neuroscience says otherwise. It was all being recorded, not by angels or in gold-plated books, but in skin, in muscle memory. And if that's true, if we've projected the witness into the heavens because we forgot how to feel it in the body, what else have we misunderstood? Maybe every God we've imagined was a mirror, every devil too. Maybe the wars we fight in myth are the chemical storms in our own tissues. Maybe the hells we fear are trauma loops that never got to finish. And the heavens we long for are simply nervous systems in balance, bodies safe enough to listen, hearts open enough to hold. The body is not the opposite of spirit. It's the record of it, the archive, the altar, the place where presence lives. And the people you meet, the ones who trigger you, the ones who soothe you, the ones who seem to appear just when you need them, aren't just characters in your story. They're co-regulators in your field. Neurons outside your skin, participating in your unfolding, real and relational, not just in metaphor, but in biology. And maybe that's what this whole book has been about, coming to see ourselves as systems to be felt and patterns to remember, a signal long buried waiting to be rejoined, like an ancient pendant beneath layers of protection, not lost or broken, but just hidden, covered by adaptation, by everything you've done to survive, waiting patiently for gentle presence, for the quiet, swift of attention, the kind that brushes away the sediment of shame with the anticipation of someone who already knows the treasure is still there, because it is. That pendant, your tone, your tether, your original yes, is still intact. And when you meet yourself with enough warmth and safety to really listen, you begin to feel it again. The shape of who you are, the hum beneath the habit, the rhythm beneath the roll. And maybe in that moment, something flickers, something ancient responds, and without even meaning to, you say the words you've been waiting to hear your whole life. There you are, whole, remembered, still evolving. Because you're not broken, just rewiring, always. About the author. Glenn Ostland is a soul-centered, trauma-informed therapist, podcaster, folklorist at heart, and lifelong seeker of the signal beneath the noise. He's the host of Infantsonthrones, a long-running podcast exploring the intersections of belief, deconstruction, and meaning-making, and the author of Bathing with God, a gender-bending conversation between human curiosity and divine imagination. Glenn also creates the Arcturian Playground, Devi Brain Change Meditations, and the 28-Day Nervous System Reset, podcasts blending neuroscience, psychological insights, storytelling, and sound healing via theta brainwave neural entrainment to support listeners in transforming automatic negative thoughts into automatic loving thoughts. With a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling and another in folklore and mythology, Glenn weaves together story and science, therapy and theology into narratives that feel both intimate and expansive. His work is grounded in clinical experience and inspired by wonder, bridging polyvagal theory, neuroplasticity, somatic healing, and spiritual inquiry into a coherent path of rewiring. Glenn lives and practices in Arizona, offering individual and group therapy through Spirit of Sonora Counseling and Wellness. He facilitates domestic violence intervention groups through Free Life Wellness Center and integrates sound therapy and neuro-linguistic programming techniques into his work to explore what it means to be a nervous system in conversation with many different versions of itself. Because we're not broken, just rewiring. And Glenn is honored to be rewiring alongside you. It's true, I am. Always.
Thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.